Well, Stat here. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Today we're going to be profiling my Gimmick Puppet deck. I also have some replays, both against Meta and Rogue. So if you enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like. Leave a comment down below. As always, I enjoy interacting with each and every one of you, and please consider subscribing for more awesome Yu-Gi-Oh content. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. So getting into the Gimmick Puppet deck, we are playing Triple Biscuit. This card allows you to go into your rank 8s easy. By discarding a Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand, you're able to special summon this card from your hand. Also, it does offer a little bit of protection when you set up your OTK, because when this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it, and your opponent cannot target Gimmick Puppet monsters with card effects. We're playing Triple Jury Doll. When this card's in your graveyard, you're able to banish another Gimmick Puppet from the graveyard to special summon this. So again, it's another extender. We're playing 2 Magnet Doll. This card is kind of like a Cyber Dragon. So if you only control Gimmick Puppets and your opponent controls a monster, you're able to special summon this card from your hand. We're only playing 2 copies because if we happen to lose the die roll and go first, you do not want to be opening with this. But we are primarily a going second deck, which is why I found a happy medium at 2 copies. We're playing triple copies of Humpty Dumpty. If this card is normal or special summoned, you're able to summon another Gimmick Puppet from your hand. So this card's really nice. A lot of times you're going to be adding this with your Link monster, and then you're going to summon it due to your Link monster's effect, and then this effect will kick off, allowing you to summon another Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand. So this card is really nice. We're playing 3 Terror Baby. This card is the MVP of the deck. When you summon this monster, you're able to bring back another Gimmick Puppet monster from your graveyard, let's say your Jury Doll, and you're able to link both these monsters away for your Chimera Doll. Now Chimera Doll is your starting play. It's your main starter. This is the card that you want to go into. This is the effect that you must have kick off, which is why the graveyard effect of Terror Baby is so important. Because when you banish it, your opponent cannot respond to the activation and the effects of your Gimmick Puppets. So before you activate any of your Gimmick Puppet monsters' effects, you want to banish this from your graveyard. That way you're almost guaranteed your OTK. Getting into a generic extender, we're playing Triple Gearspring Spirit. This card cannot be normal summoned or set, and you can summon it to your field for free if you only have machine monsters in your graveyard, which is why we're not playing a lot of hand traps and other monster types. But when it's on the field, you can target a face-up monster, its attack becomes 0. Keep in mind, neither of these effects are once per turn, and it's a free summon, allowing you to go into your rank 8s a lot easier. We're playing Triple Nibiru. As I said in my other video, a lot of meta decks now are spam, 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 so you want to put your opponent in check. So this is why Nibiru is so important. I firmly believe, in my opinion, that every rogue deck should be main decking Nibiru this format, especially if you're going second deck. We're playing triple copies of Machine Duplication. Almost all your Gimmick Puppets have 0 attack, so being able to summon, let's say, your Humpty Dumpty or your Terror Baby and then activating your Machine Dupe is really good because it gives you additional monster, and then you can link the other 2 for your Chimera Doll, so it's really nice. For the draw engine, we are playing Triple Trade-In, 2 Pot of Desires. The reason I went with this draw package is because Extravagance isn't any good in this deck because you want to have a diverse extra deck, and Prosperity isn't good because it halves the damage that your opponent would take, and this is an OTK strategy. So I opted for the 3 Trade-In and the 2 Pot of Desires. And also, all these big monsters here are high levels. They're all level 8. So we're playing a lot of level 8 monsters, so the trade-in is more consistent in this deck than, let's say, Blue Eyes or your Galaxy decks. We're playing 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Foolish Burial. This helps get your Jury Doll or your Terabyte into graveyard. Same with your Condolence Puppet, but it has additional effects. So you can send Gimmick Puppet monsters with different names from your deck to the graveyard, up to the number of monsters your opponent controls that were special summoned from the extra deck plus 1. And then you can also banish this from the graveyard Target machine exceeds monster you control, and it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects while face up on the field. So this is really good, especially if you use it in tangent with, let's say, your Dingirsu or your Gimmick Puppet of Strings, which are your two main boss monsters. For generic extenders from the graveyard, we are playing one Junk Puppet, one Monster Reborn. It's nice to have those additional extenders. Typically, you want to end on your Chimera Doll and two rank 8s. One Called by the Grave to counter hand traps. And we're playing two Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force. So this card allows you to rank up your rank 8 Gimmick Puppets into their level 9 forms. Triple Raigeki for the board wipe. And then we're playing one copy of Puppet Parade. I'm a little mixed on it, but it is really good during the grind game. So if your opponent controls more monsters than you, you can special summon Gimmick Puppet monsters, again with different names, up to the difference. Meaning, like, what are the differences between the monsters you control and your opponent? And then if your opponent's life points are 2,000 higher than yours, you could set your Argent Force from deck. So getting into the extra deck, we're playing two Chimera Doll. Again, this is your primary starter. This is the effect that you want to kick off, which is why it's important we have the Terror Baby in graveyard. That way we can banish it, that way your opponent can't respond to your Chimera Doll's effect. During the main phase, if you have this Link Summon card, you can add to your hand or send to your graveyard a Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck, and then you can special summon a Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand. So again, it's a really nice extender. It also helps fill your graveyard in certain situations, but mainly you want to special summon from your hand, because if you search for your Humpty Dumpty, you can summon your Humpty Dumpty and then bring out another level 8 from your hand. We're playing two Giant Dolls. This card's really interesting, and believe it or not, it doesn't really come up in a lot of games, but it's a really nice card. You can detach its materials, two materials, and then you can target up to two monsters your opponent controls and take control of them, and you can tribute this. That way, all monsters you control become level 8. Keep in mind, you can only special summon Gimmick Puppets the turn you use this effect, and you can only attack with Xyz monsters. So this card is a little situational, but it's not bad. I run it at 2 copies. We're playing two Gimmick Puppet of Strings. This card, as I said before, this and Dingirsu are your primary boss monsters. So you can detach a material, and all face-up monsters on the field get string counters. And then during the end phase of the opponent, all monsters on the field with string counters are destroyed, and they lose 500 life points for each monster destroyed with string counters. So it's really nice. So if you're not able to OTK your opponent, this is like a nice additional bird damage, like Cowboy for game. We are playing the rank 9 form of Gimmick Puppet of Dark Strings. So typically you're going to be summoning Gimmick Puppet of Strings, activating your rank up magic to go into this. So if this card is special summoned, you can destroy as many monsters or string counters as possible. And if you do, you get to draw a card and then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the highest original attack amongst those monsters destroyed. So again, another thing you could do is if you don't OTK your opponent with your monsters, during your main phase 2, you could activate this. That way you can rank strings into dark strings and then use dark strings effect to finish off your opponent. Now for additional strategy, we are playing Gimmick Puppet of Leo. This card's really interesting. Again, it doesn't really come up, but it is an alternative strategy where you can detach a material, place a destiny counter on this. Keep in mind, when you activate this effect, you can't conduct your battle phase, but whenever this has 3 destiny counters, you automatically win the duel. So it's a nice little alternative win. Really gimmicky though, no pun intended. We are playing the rank 9 version, which is Gimmick Puppet Leo of Disaster. So neither player can target this card with card effects. Then once per turn, you can detach a material from this card, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. And during the end phase, if this card has no material, you automatically win the duel. That's if your opponent's life points are 2000 or less. So there is a little bit of work that you need to do in order to fulfill this clause. But again, the Leo package is just an alternative strategy. We are playing one Puppet Grinder, so up to twice per turn you can detach a material to pop one of your opponent's special summon monsters, and if it happens to be an Xyz monster, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. Of course, we have the rank 9 form with Gimmick Puppet Giant Hunter. So once per turn, you can remove a material and target one card your opponent controls, destroy it, and if it's a monster, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. So all these Gimmick Puppet Xyz, or most of them, have like this little burn damage effect, which is really neat. We're playing one Degirsu. Again, this is probably the first Xyz monster you go into because, one, if you're going second, you want to be able to have an opportunity to get rid of a problematic monster your opponent controls, and two, it offers protection for your Gimmick Puppet. So if you're forced to go first and you summon this, you can at least stall for another turn. That way you can set up your OTK. We're playing one Zeus. This only comes up during the grind game, but it's still really nice to have. And we are playing a Super Poly package with Starving Venom and Garua. I do side deck Super Poly because it does come up during long matches. We're not going to go over the side deck because it's going to vary from person to person. But as I said before, I think if you're not main decking Super Poly, you should be side decking it at the very least. Same thing with Dark Ruler No More and Dimensional Barrier. So this is the Gimmick Puppet deck. I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, let's dive into the replays. So this first match is against Ishizu Tearlament. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the new Ishizu cards do, but I just assume that they're just going to do normal Tearlament stuff, which is spam, 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 and once they get about 5 monsters, or maybe 6, I'll Nibiru them. Again, Nibiru is really good because it puts Tearlaments in check, and I think we have a strong enough hand to where we can follow up the Nibiru, which is really nice. I will say that the new Ishizu cards look really good. But yeah, see what I did here? Now they're still able to follow up, but they're not going to be able to have 4 or 5 monsters on board. They're going to end with a couple monsters, and that will allow us to capitalize. Now it's our turn. We almost have the perfect setup. So we're going to activate Trade-ins and the Jury Doll. We're going to activate Terror. Terror is really good. As I said before, it will allow you to set up your plays into this. We're going to banish the Terror baby because, as I said before, you want to banish it. That way your opponent can't respond to the activation and effects of your Gimmick Puppet monsters. So again, we're going to set up our board. Degirsu is going to get rid of the Nibiru token. So we change the attack to 0. And now we can start swinging for game. Almost game. Then we're going to activate our Gimmick Puppet Strings effect, putting counters on all our face-up monsters except itself. So during the end phase of the opponent's turn, they're going to lose 500 life points for each monster with the string counter. Well, that's the intent. Obviously, they out this, but we're going to be popping up here very soon, and they're just going to surrender. Yeah, and we have game. So this matchup is against Despia. Despia Predaplants, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to go into their usual combo. And again, Nibiru is going to be your best friend. So we're just going to sit back, let them pop off. And keep in mind, the timing with Nibiru is everything. Because you want to make sure they use up their extenders, but they aren't able to make too much of a comeback. So I'm just kind of waiting until they summon 5 monsters and use up the resources from their hand and field. That way it minimizes their chance of coming back. Yep, they're going to reset their branded fusion. Luckily, we have an answer to that. Namir Jade is going to pop the Nibiru because I did send it to the graveyard. So now it's our turn. And we're going to call by the grave or Adlib, because if Branded Fusion is unable to add the Adlib to hand, then they can't Fusion Summon. And then, of course, they scoop. Now we're going against Adamancipator. This matchup was a little weird, but I think it's a good game to show because we're going to be playing around multiple negates. And Gimmick Puppets are really good with playing around negates. I will be straight up honest with you, I feel like my opponent might have misplayed quite a bit. I don't know if they're just learning the deck or if they just, you know, got trigger happy with the click button. But I felt like there was more that they could have done. But they still end on multiple negates, which isn't bad. But again, I feel like this is a good game to show because once they have, I think, 3 negates on board? Yeah, they're going to end with a Crystal Wing with their 2 rock guys. So we're going to be able to play around 3 negates. And as I said before, this deck is really good about doing that. Yep, the Condolence Puppet is going to send from deck to grave. So we baited out 2 negates. We're going to banish the Terra Baby. Now we have 2 Gear Springs on field. We can make the attack a Crystal Wing 0. And then now we can start comboing off, which is really nice. We're going to get rid of their face down and start swinging. And the Condolence Puppet offers additional protection for Dingirsu, so which is really nice. If we wanted to, we could have went for Zeus, but I feel like having the Dingirsu on board to offer the protection of our Link monster, that way we can follow up, is going to really help us in the long run. We're going to be playing against the new Valiant Pendulum archetype. I think this deck is really cool. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to take the time to read what the cards do. So I'm just kind of letting my opponent do their thing. Unfortunately, Nibiru is not going to come up this game. And I don't know if this is the best Vaylantz can do. Again, I haven't read the effects. If you know, let me know in the comment section. But I thought this was an interesting matchup to show. Now it's our turn. Now Condolence Puppet is like the MVP of the deck, or one of them. But it is nice to have that bait. That way we could pop off with our desires, and now we're trading. Now Terra Baby is going to do its thing. Again, we're going to banish the Terra Baby, that way they can't respond to our effects. And the reason why I didn't use the strings effect is because it would have just popped my own monsters, and I didn't want to do that. So I just ranked up for the additional battle damage. So now it's our opponent's turn. Again, I don't know what Valyants do. But I did think this was an interesting matchup. Now for another meta matchup, we are going against Spright. I felt like this was a really good match to showcase because this could really show what Gimmick Puppets do. Especially if you're in a situation where you're facing the meta. So like, I'm really excited to show you this game. So they're going to do all their random stuff. But I felt like this was a really good game. Like, it was pretty much overall a resource game. Yep, they're pretty much going to be setting up their negates, and I'm pretty much going to be baiting everything out. I felt like they could have ended on a stronger board, but I'm just going to assume that my opponent probably doesn't know what I'm playing. So they're probably going to be relying on follow-ups. So we're going to attempt to activate the Terra Baby. They're going to affect Vaylantz. We're going to machine dupe. Banish the Terra Baby. That way, they can't respond to it, even with the Totally Awesome on board. We're going to bait out the Regeki. Now this could be a problem because now they have a Regeki. But I feel confident that we could play around it. They're going to activate Toad Effect. We're going to call by the Grave It. Now see how perfectly that lined up? Now I kind of misplayed there. I kind of wish I didn't bring back the Jury Doll, but you know, it is what it is. Now Degirzu is going to protect our monsters. So now they're going to attempt to pop off again. I'm not too familiar with Sprites. So, like I said, their first opening board, I believe they could have done more, but like I said, my opponent probably doesn't know what I'm playing, so they're probably waiting to see like what I do here in this game, and then follow up. I do know players like that IRL. They... Ooh, Cat Shark. And then we have the Terra Baby in Graveyard, which is going to really, really benefit us. And I should have banished it first before I did the Link Monster effect. But still, I think we're in the ballpark now of winning. And now we're going to activate Strings effect. That way we can really... So they're going to lose 1,500 points of damage during their end phase. And I don't think our opponent realizes this. Because they're going to quickly end their turn, and then that's it. Yeah, I don't think they read Strings. Now we're facing off against Pendulum. So this will be the last match. I wanted to offer a little bit of variety because Pendulum, if you watch my streams, you know I struggle against Pendulum. So I felt like this was a really good match to show you how far I've come as a player. And this isn't to brag. I really do struggle against Pendulums. So this was, for me, this was a highlight, being able to play around this. And again, and I keep saying again, but again, Gimmick Puppets, I feel, could potentially be a rogue deck if they just had a little bit more support to help the main deck consistency. And maybe one or two more Xyz monsters with better effects, like an Omni Negate, something to increase the OTK strategy, or the chances of fulfilling that OTK strategy. Yeah. So again, my opponent is going to do all their shenanigans. I have no idea what they're doing. I know the Harpy Feathers Duster is going to come in real handy because we're going to be able to wipe out their back row. Yep, here we go. we're popping off now. So we're just making all their attacks 0. Now we have the Terra Baby. The Gearshoe's got to get rid of their other monster. We're going to Monster Reborn. And they scoop. So this concludes today's video. I hope you really enjoyed it. Gimmick puppets, as I said before, they're a lot of fun. Personally, I love the creepy artwork. I love the fact that this deck can play around the gates like crazy. Though, as I said before, I will be honest, this deck could use a little bit more support to help with the main deck consistency. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think about Gimmick puppets. And please consider subscribing if you're new. We stream pretty often. I have a lot more content on the way now that my schedule's kind of freed up. And I hope you all have a great week.